Selling is 100% one of the most beautiful art forms in existence, and I'm going to explain to you why in this video. First and foremost, also shout out to the young man who back in the day, right, sent me some merch. He created his own clothing line. Wanted to give him a shout out. Decided to wear it for this video. But let's talk about sales. It trips me out, and isn't it amazing? Isn't it incredible? And I had this realization very early on in my sales career that I could go outside and knock on a door, stranger's door, cold call a complete stranger, and potentially get their information, meet with them that same day or the next day, sign a contract that would then turn into 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 50, $100,000. Now, I sell a more high ticket item in real estate, but take a look at that for a second, objectively from the outside. In what other profession outside of sales can you that quickly put a deal together and for that much money? Think of other careers that garner a lot, because the cool thing about what I just described is there's no limit. Unless you're a professional athlete or actor, you're not going to have the potential to make that kind of money. Now, I said it's magical and it's beautiful because it's literally created out of thin air. It's created from me or an individual initiating a conversation with somebody who in most cases wasn't looking for that conversation per se. Yeah, there's, ways of paying for leads and all that. That comes down the road. Most people are newer or don't have the money and marketing budget like these big corporations to be doing that. So in my instance, my team and a lot of people that I work with and train, they're out there hustling every day, initiating conversations and creating these opportunities out of thin air. We have to stop and marvel at that for a second and simultaneously lock in on it because it's such a tremendous opportunity. And when you view it from that perspective, it starts to take a lot of the edge off the fear and some of these other things that people are talking about all the time with sales. And I wanted to preface this video with that because I looked at it from that perspective very early on in my career. I was just blown away. I was like, wow, how are people not treating this like the thing that it is? It's just so underappreciated. And yeah, sure, we deal with rejection and nervousness and the evolution of the human being and the personal development aspect of it because it's difficult, right? A lot weighs on you emotionally and you're faced with a lot. I get that. However, the opportunity and what's being presented to you is so grand in my eyes that pales in comparison the suffering that we would go through in order to be able to take advantage of this opportunity that provides a life of abundance, choice, freedom. In that same process, we go through a personal development journey that I believe you cannot get literally any other way because we have to deal with other human beings and communicate with them, which to me is the vehicle for the top level personal development. It's just nuts, man. So now as we dive into this and we're creating this out of thin air, well, the process of sales is a lot simpler than people think. Really what it is I'm engaging in a conversation with somebody, bringing up the topic at hand, which for me, real estate, which was the primary thing that I was selling initially before I got into other things. And we create a structure and a conversation and a dialogue that navigates them through that labyrinth of what they want and what their desires are, whether it's on the surface or deep inside of there. And we navigate that labyrinth through that conversation, have them talk, and then we determine if there's a desire or want for our service or not. If there is not, then we create a connection, which will then lead to them potentially using us in the future. But if there's a need or want that we discover through that labyrinth, now or in the very near future, we then, again, navigating that labyrinth with that conversation, we get them to realize that, understand it, accept it, ignite that fuel for it and desire for it even more a little bit, and then commit to it and start that process. Again, this is point number 2 now. Isn't that a trip? That again, I can start a conversation out of thin air and navigate that labyrinth and get somebody to say yes. Isn't that incredible? What's up, buddy? We saw you in the background. Now you're here. We don't want to see your butthole on video. Isn't that incredible? So again, when you view it from this standpoint, you get away from all the other stuff that people talk about that, right? So view it that way. We're not pressuring anybody. We're not convincing anybody. We're simply opening up a dialogue, navigating that labyrinth, and seeing if there's something there. And if there is, we move forward. And how you navigate that labyrinth is determined by your skill set, who's teaching you, the scripts and dialogues that you use, which again are all very, very important. But I want you to take this top-down objective viewpoint on sales. So you view it through the proper and correct lens. And when you do, it shifts something in you internally, because now you get excited about it, you see the good in it, you see the possibilities in it, and you switch from that negative frame that so many people have. It's going to be scary, and we're going to screw people over, and it's too aggressive, and forget that stuff. View it from what I just described. And if that description and you actually believing it and seeing that and realizing it doesn't get you excited, maybe you shouldn't be in sales. Because I was floored and blown away when I had that realization early on. And I was looking around like, yo, am I like the only one that notices this? This is crazy. Now in that process, I knew, and this is a different connection that I think many of you can make. I knew that through the vehicle of sales, I would develop character traits and become a better person, and a person that I desire to be in the future and create. And I think a lot of us internally desire to be better. You just haven't connected it yet with this career and this path, which you need to do, because you will develop confidence. You will develop social skills. You will learn social etiquette. You will learn to express yourself more freely and openly and better. You will garner and earn people's respect. You will carry yourself completely differently. You will begin to dress differently. Your self-talk will evolve and change tremendously. Your fulfillment in life will increase. Your social circle will increase. Your ability to connect with other human beings will become much, much more developed and complex and fulfilling. All right? If, again, at that time you have wife, kids, whatever, close family, those relationships and bonds will strengthen because of how you'll develop in sales. And this is assuming that you take it seriously, you get training, and you do all like the legit stuff that you're supposed to do, kind of like the path that I've been talking about for the last 12 and almost 13 years now. So with that said, and with all these things in mind, the career not only has tremendous potential and opportunities, but it's magical. It truly is magical. So now we're faced with obstacle number one, which is the development of the skill set. Well, it's pretty simple, really. There's the knowledge aspect of it, and then there's the real life application of it. And what I'm finding is people are lacking for sure in both. However, the second one seems to be the category that a lot more people are hung up on. Meaning, very little time and effort is put into practicing. And then when it comes to now the application of the real world, like, okay, I need to go out there and potentially make sales, that seems to be dwindling with people, or they're misconstruing automation and sitting back as if that is going to be developing them. There's no replacement for getting belly to belly with a client or a person door to door or making a live phone call in regards to teaching you this. And the reason, there's two reasons that you really want to go this route for a prolonged period of time. Number one, it teaches you the foundation. It develops your character. It truly hones and develops your skill set. And then it's a springboard and platform for you to take it to another level. A lot of people want to skip that because that's the scary part. And it's scary for everybody because you're new. Maybe you don't know your product or service that well, right? Maybe you consider yourself a little bit on this side of like the whole social thing, you know, shy, introvert, whatever, right? So I get it, right? It can be challenging, but you got to want what's on the other side of it bad enough to take yourself through that and make the connections that I really described in the beginning of the video. Otherwise, those temporary emotions and challenges just will destroy you because there's no purpose, there's no true meaning behind what you're doing. You're just showing up and going through the motions, which never works long term, right? But when you're practicing a lot, when you're out there talking to a lot of people, and this is why, like I told people, when I started, I was making 50 new contacts every single day, meaning brand new conversations every single day, 50. If I knocked on 100 doors, I probably talked to 20, 25 people. That was about half. That took me about 2.5 hours. Then I got on the phones, right? I did both, alternate, right? Sometimes one first and one the other and vice versa, but then I'd hit the phones, right? At first I was hand dialing, then I had, you know, a dialer system that would help me and assist me with that stuff. But I was talking to 50 new people every day. And the beauty of saturating yourself like that and taking massive action is you start to really shorten the learning curve. You start picking up on patterns. The day-to-day, that action goes from being frantic and to like slowing down. And you develop that skill set and that poise and that confidence pretty quickly, right? Well, a lot quicker if you're taking a lot of action every single day, right? You add the practicing and the role play, scripting role play, which by the way is you and another person, not you reading the script or talking to yourself in the mirror. That's not role play. That's memorizing your script. You should do that. You must do that. But role play is getting on Zoom, getting on a Google Hangout, getting on a phone call, in person, practicing with people and simulating the real thing. That doesn't replace the live action, but it's a supplement to it, and it's going to make you better because then you can pick and choose stuff that you want to work on. But you combine that, which by the way, I was scripting role playing, practicing 2 hours a day. And I was more than likely on the doors and phones with the live conversations, averaging about 5 hours a day. So between the live action and the practicing, that was about 7 hours of my day. Pretty much a whole work day between those two. Now today, a lot of people admire me for my skills and my poise, my confidence, my communication skills, but I did what I just described to you there, at least for the first 2 years. After that, I may have dialed it back a little bit, but there was still a lot of practice and massive action. Now, as you do that more and more, again, you start developing your own style, you start picking up on customer patterns, right? You really internalize, right, and master at a subconscious level your scripts, your dialogues. And you start becoming increasingly more comfortable and smoother. You start, again, being able to predict and anticipate what's going to happen. You then begin to really work on your delivery, meaning you don't just read the words on the paper or the words that you have memorized, you deliver them with oomph. Because the missing piece for a lot of people when they communicate is to communicate at the highest level. What you say in your dialogues, your questions, have to be logically sound, but there has to be an emotional impact to your words for it to create that perfect harmony of educating people, but also influencing and persuading. They have to believe what you say, they have to feel it, and they have to understand it. And I think that's a missing piece for a good chunk of people when it comes to this thing. We either have people who want to hype you up emotionally, exclusively, right? This is where like the used car salesman thing comes in, right? The reference. Or we have people who are far too logical. Typically people who are more shy or whatever tend to be more this because they're not really working on delivery. They're just reading the words. This is why this side will typically say scripts don't work. Both sides sometimes, but especially the ones who are just logical because they're just reading. Oh, when do you want to do this, right? Like very monotone, very just, well, I used the words and it didn't work. We need both. They need to be combined and at a high level. Now, as you, again, saturate yourself with all this action and all this practicing, things slow down. You're not thinking about what you're going to say anymore. All that stuff gets shoved into your subconscious mind, so it takes a lot less brain power and capacity. Now, in the moment, while being aware, not worrying about what you're going to say, and being comfortable and calm, you can now exquisitely deliver what you're going to say. Because effectively what's happened is the transition has gone from you being self-conscious here to now outwardly projecting all your attention and awareness 100% out there, and you disappear. This is what allows you to mirror and match, connect with people, be in the moment, respond, micro calibrations to what's going on, boom. And it's that switch. Nobody talks about it, but that's really what happens. You stop being in here and thinking, and your awareness goes out there. When I sell, when I'm interacting with people, there's no awareness here. It's all there, observing, watching, body language cues, like full 100% connection, focus on the target or targets, whatever it is. That's when you know you've reached another level as a salesperson. But that's not going to happen unless you start doing these things that I described in the beginning of the video, which, again, even some of my closer students still are neglecting some of these things or not doing them at the level that they must. Because this is seen as, what do? I know that. Remember, there's application and there's knowledge gathering. Everyone will read the book, watch the video. Oh, I already know that. Are you applying it though? Probably not. Or you applied it for a day or a week and you think you're done. No, you keep doing it over and over, and you keep going and going and going and going. Even something simple as ensuring that one stays question-based. When people listen to me sell, that's one of the number one things that they notice. On top of all the other stuff we've talked about, they're like, damn, this dude asks really good questions, and he's constantly asking questions. Even when I'm explaining something to somebody, it's question-based. Literally everything I do is question-based because it automatically causes the other party to participate. But here's the key, and I would write this down if I were you and type it in the comment section so you remember. When you're question-based and you lead people down the methods and strategies that I use to sell, I take the idea that I want to present to people, and the way that the dialogue goes is then through the questions, the individual or individuals that I'm talking to come to the conclusion on their own, meaning the questions that I ask will guide them to think and arrive at the conclusion that I wanted to tell them. But if I was to compare me telling something to somebody versus me asking questions and them arriving at that conclusion and believing that that idea was theirs as they came to the conclusion, that second one that I just said is going to sell at a 100 times higher effectiveness rate, 1,000%. It's going to lower the chance of them resisting and giving me objections. It's going to lower their resistance. It's going to make them more comfortable. It's going to feel as if the idea came from them. They're going to understand my logic, and we're going to be on the same page. We're going to have more rapport. I can go on and on and on and on. However, you're not going to be question-based unless you're totally comfortable, you understand your product or service inside and out, you have a ton of practice, you're super comfortable, and your delivery is on point. So this is later. I teach this system, and you're going to learn it as you go. But as you become more advanced, it becomes more effective, and you become much, much better at it. Because what do? The moment something throws us off or we get a little nervous, we go back into what I call explain mode, which is what most salespeople do, where they just start diarrheaing out of their mouth. Blah, and they start talking, explaining, talking. Then they lose it. So what I do as a drill a lot of times is I tell people, okay, let me know what you say in this part of the presentation, and then I'm going to return it to you for that presentation in a question-based format. So they arrive at the conclusion and they give you the answer. The answer that I say out of my mouth, I want to create a dialogue where they say it. That's basically what it is. And if I can do that, I can sell anything to anybody, anywhere, any place, anytime. That becomes the game to develop that. So a lot of what's based in my sales system amongst all the other things is that. And that's why I believe what we do in Distinguished Agent and the Agagi and all my programs is unique in that sense. And I've developed it. I've studied so many other people and done so many other things, and I've experimented now and kind of created my own style, right? And I truly believe that this is super, super effective. But if you can learn to do those types of things, no one's going to stop you. No one's going to stop you, which is why I have that level of confidence now when I sell or when I'm in, social situations, because I know how to position it the right way. I know how the human mind works. I understand behavioral psychology, evolutionary psychology, right? I know what attracts human beings. I know what repels them. All the stuff that you should be learning in association, because this is how I'll wrap up the video. The more you increase your understanding and wisdom and knowledge base, you can apply it to this field. The unique advantage that I have, one of them, is that I've studied and learned so many different things. I've funneled that understanding into sales and communication, which is what gives me an upper hand on most people, virtually everybody, because I'm studying and adding things that other people aren't aware of or that they haven't studied. This is why I laughed back in the day when I would talk about like NLP and hypnosis, and people are like, what does that have to do with sales or real estate? And I'm like, man, they don't make the connection yet. Behavioral psychology, evolutionary, what does that have to do with sales and real estate? Like, you guys aren't thinking. It has to do with human beings and how we think and how we're wired. It has everything to do with sales and communication. What are you talking about? But they don't see it. I used to argue with people. Then I stopped. I said, if they don't see it, fair enough. That'll be my advantage in the marketplace. Simple stuff, right? Studying social dynamics, all that stuff, right? So I want you to view this thing a little bit differently and understand that sales cuts and goes a lot deeper, sales and communication, than most people think. All right? Won't make it too long. Take advantage of some of the resources I have, guys. Get on my email list. Click some of the links below. They're free. They'll get you on the email list. They'll teach you some stuff. Other than that, leave a thumbs up, subscribe. Anything else that I can do to help, let me know, and we'll chat. All right? Peace.